So people who have the idea that Michael Schumacher was overconfident, they've got him completely wrong.
Completely. Michael is a kind of shy, generous guy. And he hide his shyness by looking arrogant.
To win the World Championship!
For the first time in the history, a driver was world champion in the middle of the season. Before starting the new season, he said, could you give me half a day to do some testing to make sure I'm still good?
Never fear a storm.
Be ready to adapt.
The skill is staying true to ourselves.
Well, Jean, welcome to High Performance. So many people will see you and instantly be transported back to your glory days as the leader of Ferrari in Formula One. Can I take you back to 1993 when the decision was made to sign Michael Schumacher?
Ferrari was not successful at all. And they were dying to try to find somebody who could take the job. And my name was proposed until I met them. It was a long time before. I mean, we both agreed because I felt it's going to be a very difficult challenge. Everybody was telling me, don't go there. You will not last more than 2 years. And for them to take somebody who had no experience of Formula One and to take somebody who was not Italian. You know, so it was a kind of a big change. But finally, after long discussions, I think the discussion started in August 92, and we finalized in March 93. The first really dream driver I discussed was Ayrton Senna. It was during Monza Grand Prix in 94. Sorry, 93.
93, yeah.
93. I remember he came to my room in Villa d'Este. We were staying in the same hotel, and we spent part of the night together to speak about him joining Ferrari. And he wanted to come. He wanted to come, but he wanted to come in 94. And in 94, we had already a contract with Gerhard Berger and Jean Alesi. And I said to him, 94 will not be possible. First, we will not be ready yet, and then we have a contract. And he answered to me, in Formula One, contracts are not important. I said, for me, a contract is important.
So when did you want Senna to come to Ferrari?
In 94.
You wanted to come in?
Yeah. And no, in 95.
You wanted him in 95,
95,
and he wanted to come.
And he wanted to come in 94.
But Ayrton Senna wanted to drive for
Williams.
Ferrari. Ayrton Senna wanted to drive for Ferrari.
Yeah. And I heard there were some contacts before me, but I cannot talk about, I don't know, you know. But I mean, with me, as the head of the Formula One team, it was a discussion in September 93 for him arriving in 95, and he wanted to arrive in 94. That's why he went to Williams. So after that, 94, we still had the same drivers, but we were rebuilding the team. 95, still rebuilding the team, and then we knew that 96 was the year really to try to have. And, you know, very often also amongst engineers, some were saying, the chassis people, we don't have a good engine. The engine people, we don't have a good chassis. And then above all, we don't have good drivers. So I say, okay, to make sure nobody will be able to say, having Michael, we miss the driver.
Yeah. So
Andy was the best driver. We had to convince to take him. So we discussed early 95, and then we spent one day in Monte Carlo, our lawyer, Henri Peter, and myself, with Michael and Willy Weber. And after one day, we signed the contract.
One day. So why were you able to sign Michael Schumacher from a team where he had been successful in one day?
I think he thought driving for Ferrari would be different. You know, he liked the challenge. And of course, he was very curious, you know, very professional. He did not want to commit without having some guarantees. Yeah. And I contacted simultaneously, without them knowing, Ross Brown, to propose him the position of technical director, and Rory Byrne to propose him the role of chief designer. And both of them had worked with Michael in the Benetton team. And of course, Michael knew about that. And so that's how slowly and slowly we rebuilt the team. In '96, we won finally three Grand Prix. '97, we lost the Drivers' Championship as the last race with this controversial overtaking to Villeneuve, where Michael unfortunately did a mistake, but probably, in a way, the mistake demonstrated a very strong solidarity, because where you see the strength of a group of people when things don't go well. When all goes well, everybody's friends.
What mistake are you talking about there?
I mean, the last race in Spain with Villeneuve.
You think that was a mistake? It wasn't when Michael crashed into Jacques?
He crashed him purposely, but he did it badly. In fact, Michael, with an amazing guy, every time he lost control, he paid it very expensive. So it cost him the championship, as incidentally in 2006, Monte Carlo, qualifying with Alonso, where
he stopped
purposely
onto back,
span. He had to leave in the back of the grid. It cost him the championship as well. So the two mistakes he did cost him the championship. And some others, it was... So 97, we lost at the last race. 98, we lost at the last race when he stalled at the car. And earlier, when he was lapping Coulthard in Spa, under the rain, where obviously the car in front of him slowed down unnecessarily, he could not see, and he damaged his car. So lost at the last race. 99, a mechanic mistakes made that during the formation lap, he lost his brakes. Incidentally, never complained about a mistake which was done by the team. He came back in Malaysia. At the time, we had Eddie Irvine, who took the lead. And incidentally, he finished the championship at equal points than Häkkinen, but less victories. But 99, finally, we won the Manufacturers' World Championship. And we knew that in 2000, that was the last year. Because if we would not have won in 2000, clearly the team would have exploded. And we won. But we won, it was not obvious, because mid-season, I remember in the debriefing where I said we need to win the last 4 races. Otherwise, team is gone. And we won them. And then it was a kind of dream period, because winning both championship, 2001, 2, 3, 4.
Would you give us an example, a story of a time where you saw a behaviour from Michael Schumacher that you think best explains to people watching this why he behaved in the way he did, why his behaviour was so important, his personality was so vital?
But Michael, in fact...
Does this sound familiar? You just landed somewhere abroad. There's a big sporting event on that you don't want to miss. Now, for me, it would probably be a Grand Prix or a big Premier League match that I've been looking forward to all week. So you open up your streaming app and it's blocked. It's geo-restricted. It's completely unavailable where you are. For me, that's a nightmare. But that's where NordVPN can change the game. NordVPN lets you securely access your home streaming services wherever you are in the world. So I know I can watch football, or I can watch a Formula One race, and the kids can stream their favourite shows no matter where we are. And this isn't just about convenience, right? It's also about safety. A VPN encrypts your internet connection, meaning your data's protected from hackers and snoopers, especially when you're using public Wi-Fi in, airports or hotels or cafes. And also, one NordVPN account can cover your whole household, giving your family extra privacy, even across their shared devices. I think it's really important. And to get the best discount off your NordVPN plan, go to nordvpn.com/high performance. Our link will also give you 4 extra months on their 2-year plan, and there's no risk with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee. The link is in the episode description. You know, there was a point a little while ago where I looked at all the supplements in my kitchen cupboard, and my wife laughs about this even now, and she's like, what has happened here? And honestly, I didn't realise that all of the supplements that I was taking had got so complicated. But I think it's because I was trying to be a dad, trying to be a partner to Harriet, trying to run a couple of businesses, trying to find time to host this podcast. And I suppose really what I needed was less things in my life and just a few things that actually work. And I think there's a myth that I'd like to debunk at this point, right? It's that high performance doesn't mean trying to chase everything. It doesn't mean finding every hack. It doesn't mean squeezing more into every single day. Sometimes the best performers, and they've told us this when they've been in this studio, they just prioritize simplicity. They only master the fundamentals. And to be honest, I think I've learned this the hard way through trial and error. And I think I now realize that nothing is more fundamental than fueling your body with the right nutrition. And I believe this helps. Vitals by Heights is nutrition without the noise. Just 2 capsules, 6 seconds, 0 effort. And in here, all the essential nutrients, the vitamins, the minerals, the healthy fats that are designed to power energy, focus, recovery, and sleep. So we're talking about no mixing, no nonsense, just everything you need in the right doses. And I think if something takes longer than about 10 seconds, I'm out. Luckily, this takes about 6, so you're fine. So why don't you strip your health routine back and just focus on what matters? Head to heights.com/Jake or enter code HP20 at checkout for 20% off your first month. I promise you, I believe this stuff really works.
He's quite a fragile human being. He's not the kind of, the typical hard voice or somebody who, in German we say Besserwisser, who knows better than the others. And I will give you an example which for me was amazing, and significant of what is Michael. After he was world champion, before starting the new season, he asked me, and going back to a private track in Ferrari, he said, could you give me half a day where I'm going to do some testing to make sure I'm still good? So, and I think it's a big strength not to be sure to be good.
Yeah.
So I think none of us thought we were good. We were always scared not being good enough. That's why, in a way, it's a bit painful, because we never probably enjoyed as much as we should have done the result. But I remember, I think it was in 2004, where for the first time in the history, a driver was world champion in the middle of the season, in Manicourt. Michael was world champion in Manicourt, French Grand Prix. And then, one race after, we were manufacturers world champion in Budapest. And then, next race was Spa, where incidentally he did not win. And next race was Monza, we had 2 cars on pole. And I remember myself torturing my head by saying, are we going to do well? Are we going to do well? And then I speak to myself, and I say, but you are crazy. What? Why do I care? You have already the world championship, But we forgot very easily. All that because we were thinking, how can we do good next? How can we do better? How can we improve? We never felt it's done. We always felt we need to do more. And I think this spirit, was shared by most of the people in the team.
So people who have the idea that Michael Schumacher was overconfident and almost arrogant, they've got him completely wrong.
Completely. But Michael is a kind of shy, generous guy. And he hide his shyness by looking arrogant.
Right. Why does that help him?
I don't think it's... you don't do that to help you. I think it's in your character, in your gene. You are like that.
And when did you see behind the mask then? To see the real
Michael? Very quickly, because, then, the problem we had to fight, going back 97, all the protection, he realized that he was protected. He realized he was loved, so it goes both ways, So clearly, one after the other, from kind of professional relationship, it became friend and family relationship.
You've just described all of those seasons, 97, 96, 97, 98, 99, and you still remember the moments that cost you the title in those seasons.
Because, sometimes people say, what is your best memory? In a way, my worst memory is when we lost the title at the last race. And it happened in 97, 98, 99, 2006, and 2008, 5 times.
And as that was happening, was there ever a moment when Michael's behaviour changed because he was having to be patient, he was having to wait? Like, was he getting angry? Was he getting frustrated? Was he ever saying, maybe I need to leave Ferrari to win?
No, I think probably he had some thoughts because he got very good offers from certain teams, and so he probably was thinking of it. But I think it was at the second or third renewal he knew he was going to stay for Ferrari.
When we interviewed Toto Wolff, he told us an anecdote about coffee cups, that paying attention to detail in his world, he would look for whether there was dirty coffee cups in the reception area, because that gave him a clue as to whether the culture was aligned all the way through. Can you give us any examples of when you've got the right people within your team, how you would ensure that alignment was consistent?
For me, I mean, I'm a detail maniac.
Okay.
So all has to be clinical. I remember randomly, every week, I was taking the security people and I said, we are going to go through all the factory. You better make sure I don't find one cigarette on the floor. So, I mean, for me...
Why does that matter so much?
Because all has to, it's a mentality. If you want to have things perfect, I mean, to be competitive in Formula One, which is pinnacle of motorsport, I mean, the bar is high. So you must be very, very focused on making sure that things are perfect. And it demonstrates a mentality. If people accept to see a burnt cigarette on the floor, it doesn't work.
I love this insight into the management of Ferrari, and I fully understand the paying attention to detail, having stability if you've got good people, working with Ross and Rory, protecting each other. But I think a really interesting part of your management is actually when things aren't so good, when you've got to deal with challenges. And going back to the incident with Villeneuve in 1997, I'm fascinated how you dealt personally with Michael after that moment.
I mean, first, if Michael did not know how to cheat. He did it from my knowing twice, but he did it badly. I mean, it would have been easy. I mean, he was in first line with Villeneuve at the start. I mean, we have examples. 2 years in a row between Senna and Prost. So he just had to break a bit late or something that he could have done at the start. He chose to do that 10 times behind the lap, 10 laps behind the end.
And
it was
do you
the
think
wrong
that
choice.
when he did that with Villeneuve, was that like instinct? It was in the moment. It wasn't, or was it premeditated?
No, I mean, it was just, in emotion. That's why you must be, when you judge somebody in action, you must be very indulgent. It's easy around the table, so you should do that, you should do that. But when you are in the action, you must understand that your brain is reacting differently. Yeah. And when he thought that he was going to lose the championship because he had to be in front of Villeneuve, he tried to avoid that, and he tried wrongly to do it. And he needed support. It was a bad move. It was unnecessary.
Yeah. What did you say to him privately?
I mean, honestly, we are going to protect you. We are together. I mean, human mistake. I mean, you must accept human error.
Did you also say, Michael, come on, you can't do that. That's not good enough?
I mean, honestly, when we always think if it will happen again, what you will do, you should not do that. But again, it's very difficult. I mean, to blame emotion.
Yeah.
You need to understand. You need to understand emotion, and then he did so many amazing things. So I mean, you have plus and minus. So you have some minus, but you have so much plus. And I remember before a race, I went just before the start of a race. I went in his room in the motorhome, and I said, "Look, Michael, we have this idea. We don't have money. Will you help?" And he said to me, "I'm very cautious on all my engagement and all that. But if you tell me to do, I will do it. Of course, I trust you." But Michael was emotion. Look, when it was this earthquake in I don't remember in Asia, in Indonesia or some. I mean, where he had this one or two guys of his security who was around there at the time, he decided to give without knowing, what will be the use of this money. He decided to give 6 or 7 million, So in a way, it was generous, but in an emotion manner.
And do you think that the flawed moments that he had, you said 97 and 2006, do you think that those are the same part of Michael that's also the genius, the guy that drove in Barcelona 96, Hungary 98? If you're going to have genius, there's also going to be a flawed element to that same
But
person.
it started earlier. It started when he was very competitive. I remember the first time I really realized that he was a quick driver was I think it was Mount Fuji in sports car.
Yeah.
Where at the time I was running the Peugeot team and he was driving for Mercedes Sauber. And I realized he was really good because watching on the screen the lap time on the rain and all that. And then I crossed him at the airport and, well done. He was a young guy, And then first race he did with Jordan, we could see he was special. And he had not the best car. And 92, 93, here, I remember he was like a machine, lap after lap, very consistent, very quick. And he developed that. But saying that, as I said earlier, he needed to have the good package because in 96, he did not have the good package, but he was still as talented as he was before.
Yeah.
And what did you learn then about being able to control emotions to then become like a machine and be so consistent?
I must say it's never a question I raise myself, but I think it is very important not to lose a sense of reality, not to lose your nerves, being stable, whatever the condition, the situations. That is very important.
What do you think was Michael's greatest ever race?
If you tell me what was the one which for me was the most memorable, it's Suzuka in 2004. Because after all this suffering, this emotion and all that, finally, we got the trophy, and we all were hired for that. And I remember taking him to the podium. I said to him, Michael, our life will never be the same because we got it home.
And how did he change when the success came?
He never really changed. Which is a good thing. Michael, he knew he was a star, but he wanted to be able to live normally in Sweden. That's why he wanted to live in Switzerland. He wanted to be able to go in a place without being disturbed. He wanted to be able to pick up the kids at school. He wanted to be a normal citizen, which was very difficult.
So can we talk about your decision then to bring Ross and Rory into the team? I'm interested in the dynamics between you and how that eventually led to success.
In a way, it was easy decisions, we knew that to have a winning team, we needed to take best mechanics, best engineers, best partners. So For me, I remember we had some thoughts about Adrian Newey. Some discussion with him. He did not want to come to Italy. I remember I had always a lot of respect for Rory Byrne, because when I was running the Peugeot Sports Cars program, I tried to hire him, but he did not want to come because he wanted to stay in Formula One.
Right.
And Ross Brown was a referent as a technical director. So clearly, incidentally, it happened that they were in the same team. But for me, it wasn't the belonging to the team. It was, the personality of Ross on one side and of Rory on the other side. Incidentally, they did not know I was talking to them. And I remember after I signed both of them, I said, look, now you can mention to each other that you have signed. And they said, I remember Ross, okay, I will invite him for a beer tomorrow. But they did not know. So it was not kind of hiring a package. It was individual discussions and decisions.
But what do you tell us about the first meeting when you all get together? How do you get people to buy into the team as opposed to people bringing their own egos or their own agendas?
So Michael arrived in 96. Ross arrived early 97, a few months before Rory. But it was nothing magic, nothing historic. Just get the job done.
And did you keep the signing of Michael secret from Bernie Ecclestone?
So yes, Bernie. Bernie, who I know very well. Bernie likes always so that he is the one behind. So I never spoke about that until the day before the announcement. I told him. And Bernie after said, I knew it since a long time, or even I contributed, which is not true.
Explain again why you didn't want Bernie to know.
No, it's no point. But honestly, it was not Bernie business.
Yeah,
it was up to us to. We wanted to have Michael to deal with Michael, and that's it. But honestly, I don't care if somebody wants to say something, even if it doesn't correspond to the reality. At the end of the day, what was important is to have Michael.
Yeah. One of the phrases we use often here is evidence leaves clues. And there were some brilliant moments like Barcelona 96, where Michael won by almost a minute in bad conditions. I wonder the impact on the team when you're fighting and fighting and fighting, and sometimes you just get an amazing result. What did that do for you? What did it do for Ferrari?
It's a refreshment.
Yeah.
It gives it puts the pressure for 2 weeks. And I remember also, enjoying a race success. Enjoyment was between the podium and Monday morning.
Yeah.
After that, it was forgotten. So, no time to celebration, no time for, and just be focused. Because we know that it's very fragile. Success is never given for granted.
Yeah.
Will never last. It can only last if you put effort to make sure that you may do it again.
And of course, as soon as things do go even slightly wrong, there will always be many people waiting to criticize.
That if you have some understanding of life, that things are never given for granted and will not last. Sometimes the mistake is when somebody gives you the key, you need to know that you will have to give back the keys. And then that's finished. The key will not remain for you all the time, and it will be a mistake to think that it is your belonging. So you must be prepared, to be involved with the responsibility. And, you take FIA. I left FIA on, I think it was 17 or 19 December 2021. I never heard about FIA since then. So it just...
Chapter closed.
It's okay.
So when you start a role, because when you talk about you will hand the keys back one day. It reminds me of, we've met members of the New Zealand rugby team that talk about leave the shirt in a better place than you find it. How would you like to be remembered when you think back in Ferrari from when you came into the day you left? It was obviously in a better place, but how would you like people to?
Honestly, I don't have a special wish how I want to be remembered. I mean, I always said, probably my asset is my credibility and my integrity. That's for me the most important. Nobody can come and tell me, you remember?
Can you give us an example in Formula One where your integrity was tested?
I don't think I can, but maybe you have something in mind?
No, I was taken by the conversation that you recounted when you with Senna, and you said, no, contracts are important, and that's what resonated. And I was wondering if there was ever any other situations or occasions where you felt you acting with integrity was questioned or challenged.
I mean, I would offer 2002 when you asked Michael and Rubens to swap on track. It wasn't against the rules of Formula One, but people felt it was against the spirit of Formula One.
I like this question.
Yeah.
So
I bet you get your car MOT done regularly. Even if it's not driving perfectly, you still know that you need to check about what's happening under the bonnet, right? And I actually think we should treat our health exactly the same way. That's why here on High Performance, I'm really proud that we've partnered with Randox Health. With their Everyman Health Assessment, you get a full body MOT. This is a test that looks at up to 150 different health markers like liver, kidney, heart, prostate health, hormones, and so much more. We're talking about the stuff that you just can't see from the outside. I also like the fact there's no GP referral needed. There's no long wait times. Like, you could literally have your test booked before I finish reading this. And after booking an appointment online, you can visit one of their local clinics in the UK and Ireland and get your test results within 2 hours of your sample reaching the lab. It shows you where your body's at right now. It also helps you spot potential risks early before they turn into something bigger. You can get personalised, practical advice so that you can take control of your health today and into the future. They also offer an Every Woman Health Assessment designed with women's health in mind. So keep your body running properly. Book your test today and save 20% thanks to us on all their health checks with the code HP20 at randoxhealth.com. That's the code HP20 for 20% off at randoxhealth.com. Huge thanks to Owen Mitchell for partnering with us on today's episode. You know, on this show, we talk so often about defining moments, those points in your life where the decision you make really matters. And it's not just in sport or in business, but it's also in your personal life as well. And that is where legal experts Owen and Mitchell come in. Whether you're planning for the future, whether you're going through a separation, you're thinking about inheritance tax, or maybe protecting your property and your legacy, they're complex, high-stakes moments. You've got to get them right, and you need lawyers who understand both the details and the bigger picture. Owen Mitchell's private client team offer a personalised service built around your needs, bringing clarity and confidence for when it matters most. And like all high performers, they start out by listening. Find out more at owenmitchell.com. That's owenmitchell.com.
I mean, for me, it has always been the terror to lose, because we lost so much at the last race.
Yeah.
So probably in certain years we should have been less cautious, But let's say the team discipline was, after a certain amount of races, it will be a priority to one driver, So in
2002.
In 2002,
yeah.
We started the race
in Austria,
debriefing with team order, and it was, if you are in front of Michael before the last pit stop, you must let Michael go, and it was agreed.
Yeah.
Wrongly or rightly, but it was agreed before and accepted.
Because Michael was leading the world championship.
Because Michael, and again, because we did not want to take the chance to lose at the last race.
Yeah.
Probably wrongly today. It's easy to say at the end of the season. but it could not have been wrongly. So anyway, and it was accepted. And when we were to the end of the race, where an agreement was taken and accepted.
Yeah.
I mean, Rubens did not like to commit to what was decided, which created a big embarrassment. So normally I would not go on the radio. You know, that was the engineers, Ross, working on the race development.
Yeah.
So I had to go on the radio and remind what was agreed. And I must say, Ruben did not do it nicely, and he put the team in a big controversial situation, even Michael. But it was agreed. And then, you know, I remember, I think it was the same year, in Indianapolis. Indianapolis, they were first and second. And Michael waited for Rubens. He was leading the race. Michael waited for Rubens to arrive at the finishing line together, and Rubens passed him.
Yes. So when
you know, you think in a way the candidity, you say,
candid, being candid,
of Michael waiting for his teammate to go to the finishing line, and he did not. We never spoke about that, and Michael never complained.
So in that moment in Indy, or in the moment in Austria, what's your approach to management and leading the team after that race? Like, how did you approach Rubens?
I must say it was very embarrassing, because then Michael was very embarrassed.
Yeah.
And in fact, we got penalized simply for wrong procedure on the podium, which is true, because Michael was so embarrassed that he gave his position and to Rubens.
Yeah.
So that was the thing, you know. But honestly, it's little to do on that.
But you must have had something to say to Rubens.
Of course I did. But you know, if you're in a bad phase, I mean, you will make your own story. But I mean, at the time, everybody will remember, because at the team meeting before the start of the race, you have the technical director, you have the two race engineers, and you have the two drivers. So everybody knew about it.
Man, difficult for you.
But you know, that human being, that's very. I mean, you know, again, that's emotion. You know, we were talking earlier about emotion, so I should accept the emotion of Rubens. He'd accept the emotion of Michael. That has the consequences. Emotion of Michael had some consequences. Emotion of Rubens have had some consequences.
Yeah.
That's the fact. That's the price to pay.
Yeah. Well, that's exactly the price to pay for being the leader of the biggest Formula One team in the world. Was the embarrassing thing for you that you had to be the person to come over the team radio and deliver the news?
No, it's my job.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, being a team leader is also being a fireman. You know, if there's fire, you need to extinguish it. You don't leave the fire going on.
And how did you protect the team after the backlash and the criticism that followed?
You know, in a way, it's a smoke. You know, the team, but in a way, it's better to be attacked being first and second than being attacked because you don't finish the race. So it did not hurt me.
Yeah.
So, you know, you spoke earlier when you came into Ferrari and you were constantly asking, how can we get better? How can we improve? When you come towards the end of a chapter, what are the questions you're asking yourself then?
But you know, then, you know, I was saying also it's a life is going from place A to place B, you know, and you don't know what is going to be. It's valid for all of us, you know. And going on place B, you find different things on the road. So I found FIA. During FIA, I found UN. Before that, I found Brain Institute. Something is sure. I decided in 2008 that it was time to give something back. You know, so for me, my interest is to give something back. I still have I could have done, incidentally, I remember something, when I left Ferrari, Dietrich Mateschitz wanted me to join So he came to have a lunch at home in Paris with me twice.
What, to join Red Bull?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And he really wanted, he was keen, and he did not like to travel, so he came twice at home.
In what job? To do what job for Red Bull?
I mean, to run the team and to run motorsport activities of Red Bull. And I say no, because for me, this chapter is over. I was running the kind of iconic brand with success. So in a way, I could not do better. And I wanted to do other things. So, it was time for me to give something back. It was a period of my life, and it's still the period of my life where I want to give something back. In some world where there is even competitivity, money, people forget that. That's why for me it is important to travel, to see poverty, to see people who don't have access to medical care, people who don't have access to public transportation, and to try to give a little hand. It will be very presumptuous to say that we are changing the world, but even giving little, see eyes of people who are in the need, who smile, make people smiling. It's a win. It's a different win, but I think it is very important.
When you were the president of the FIA, sadly, Formula One lost Jules Bianchi in an accident in Japan, and he later died. How did that change the way that you saw the world?
I mean, we started the discussion by saying motorsport is dangerous. So a lot of effort, and incidentally we're talking Max Mosley, a lot of people who were in charge have been putting priority on improving safety. But you see that in motor racing, you see that in motorbike racing, and incidentally that's one of the reasons I consider motor racing as a laboratory, and we must do something. I will cover that in a while. But so between 94, when Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger died the same weekend, it had been even more priority on safety, governing body, teams, drivers. And unfortunately, it was the accident of Jules Bianchi, which was devastating. I mean, for the family, for the sport, in a way for my son, who was his manager, who loved him like his brother. And we only sort of putting even more effort. And then in 2009, it was Felipe Massa. Felipe Massa got in lap. He got the shock absorber of Rubens Barrichello, which almost destroyed his head. So I really said, we need to do something. So I asked engineers, what is the most vulnerable part now after all the progress which have been done? And the head, cockpit. But we need to find something. So I got proposal about the halo. And I said, okay, let's work on it. And incidentally, at the time, the one who was in charge of this program was Laurent Mekies, now running Red Bull. And I asked him to work on the project, and he made a proposal. And when the proposal was presented to the teams, certain drivers, a lot were against. They said, it's not Formula One. So my question was to engineers, is it going to protect the head better? The answer was yes, so we do it. And I remember Romain Grosjean commenting the day of the announcement of the decision, saying it's a sad day for Formula One. And a few months after, he lost his car, the first lap in Bahrain, and he went through the barrier. And the barrier were like a knife. without Arlo, he would have lost his head, which he admitted, So that was probably the best answer, that it was right to do it.
But the work that you're doing now, although linked to sport and movement and cars and travel, is very important. It's very different to Formula One. What gives you the thrill for the work that you're doing now with the UN?
I mean, simply because, first of all, I consider that life is a book. It's a movie. So with chapters. I was blessed enough to have a few chapters in what was, still is, incidentally, my passion. But then I thought I've been quite successful. I was, in a way, quite comfortable in my life. And on the other side, I think it's very important never to lose sight of what is happening globally in the world. And it's something which is hurting me quite a lot, is discrepancy between wealth and poverty. So I thought I would put my kind of reputation for something different, which could help those who are not as fortunate as we are. So clearly, I mean, it started in around 2003-04 by doing something around the medical institute, which is called Brain Institute. And it's something, I've always been, very scared by being hurt in motor racing. And we know that motorsport is dangerous. And it has improved significantly over the decades. But unfortunately, during my career as a co-driver, as running a rally team, cross-country team, endurance team, I was facing accidents. So I thought it was time to give back. After I left Ferrari, early 2009, and very quickly I was elected president of the FIA. And FIA, we have two different responsibilities. One, around motorsport as a regulator and legislator of motorsport, and the other one by being the umbrella of Automobile Association, which is facilitating life for road users. And I realized the number of victims on the roads, at the time, 1.3 million people were dying on the roads every year, and about 50 million people were injured with full-time disability.
Yeah.
And it's number one cause of death and injuries for young generation from 5 to 29. I said, I think it's something which has to change. Incidentally, I give you this book, A Silent Pandemic, because everybody is under the threat of having a road crash. So of course, depending on the countries, it's different. Incidentally, UK is one of the best countries, so you should be proud of that. But 90% of those figures are occurring in low and middle income countries. So as the president of the FIA, I had some contact with international organization, and I thought it's something we need to address with UN. I was fortunate to be able to be introduced to Ban Ki-moon and his team. And we had a very good discussion, very good contact, until he decided on the 1st of April 2015 to appoint me for the first time as Secretary General Special Envoy for Road Safety. Wow. And I was passionate about that. I thought it was a great responsibility, but it was always going back to chapter. It was also a way to give something back. And since then, it's a kind of renewal agreement. I'm reappointed until end of this year. Then we will see, because it will be a new election for the Secretary General of United Nations and all that. But still, at the moment, it's something which takes quite a lot of my time, and where I feel passionate, even if, I must confess that a lot needs still to be done to address properly this silent pandemic.
Look, The fact that you're 79 and can talk so passionately for so long about that, it is a good reminder to people that keeping passion at the heart of what you do in life is so vitally important. Time for some quickfire questions, Jean. From your amazing career, what are the 3 non-negotiable behaviours that you think are most important in life?
I said integrity,
Yep.
honesty, and humility.
What's the single best piece of advice you've ever received and why?
For me, advice is to learn by example. I don't think somebody really told me you should do that or not do that, but you learn from yourself. You see and you learn by behavior. I always said, for me, the most fascinating things is human being. Population of the planet is 8 billion people. We all have the same specifications. And you have 8 billion prototypes on Earth. And it's fascinating. And you don't know how it works.
Like that.
What is your biggest strength?
Hard worker, never give up.
And your greatest weakness?
Maybe a bit impatient. A bit not very tolerant, and to have a too big memory.
And finally, your advice to people that have listened to this conversation about how they can live their own high-performance life.
I think you can see, very often I see people are getting lazy in certain parts of the world. Why Asian people is developing so much, because the commitment. I think high commitment is very important, and the tendency in the developed countries is people are less committed. They are more with high. Maybe I will be unpopular, but I hate teleworking. For me, the best way to have success, to communicate, is to be together, eyes in eyes, working together, collaborating together, not through a video.
Yeah. Jean, thank you very much for your time. Absolutely fascinating.
Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you.